Listening to Bad Dog Agility, bringing you training tips, interviews, and news about the great sport of dog agility.
I'm Esteban.
And I'm Sarah, and this is episode 235. Today's podcast is brought to you by hititboard.com. Hititboard.com has the innovative training tools you need for agility. Having problems with the dog walk or A-frame? The Hititboard can fix that. Your dog doesn't like tugging? They'll love the Tug It. Can't move your A-frame around by yourself? The Move It can. Go to hititboard.com and use discount code BDA10 to get 10% off your order. That's hititboard.com.
Today's podcast is also brought to you by 1TDC.com. Dog agility can be hard on your dog's body. Help keep their joints and muscles healthy with 1TDC. 1-tetradecanol complex is a clinically studied blend of unique fatty acid oils that can support your dog's joint health. 1TDC promotes a healthy inflammatory response from head to tail. All of our listeners will automatically qualify for a great 1TDC special offer by purchasing online at BDA1TDC.com. That's BDA, the number 1, TDC.com. In this podcast, we are going to be sharing 5 lessons that our new puppies have taught us. And for those of you who don't know, we do have 2 puppies, his and hers. We haven't done the final pairing up. We had kind of planned to do that based on
personalities.
Yeah, wherever it matches up the best. Sarah and I are both different. And this kind of leads us right into number 1, the number 1 lesson that we have been learning here. And it's that puppies are individuals and they respond differently to the exact same training, right? And so because of that, you need to make adjustments, and those adjustments are going to be tailored to the individual. And so each puppy is going to kind of evolve their own training regimen, and even their routines are going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, I think this is probably not shocking, but having 2 at the same time, it's just like a constant reminder of these things. We will take these puppies out. They're only a month different in age, and we'll...
Right, so, well, let's give a little bit of background.
Sure.
So we have a 10-month-old poodle.
Yes.
Right, and this is a poodle from kind of like working European type lines. Father's like 19 inches, mother's like 16 inches, and this poodle is somewhere in the 16 to 17 inch range.
Right.
And then the golden retriever from working lines, many agility relatives, is a month younger.
Right.
9 months old. I think she's sitting around 19 inches right now. At the shoulder. So only recently did she get bigger than the poodle.
Yeah, I thought it was going to happen right away.
But the poodle held on for a long time.
She outweighed the poodle.
Right. She's very dense. So, we have these 2 great puppies, 2 different breeds. They're both female.
Right?
Yeah. And so that's the background on them. But I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, it just really drives that point home every single day. We will take these dogs out, and at this point, they're both. Our training plan is somewhat similar. The things we want to work on is somewhat similar. Right. The skill sets that we're looking for.
And that's true for all of us, right? Everyone listening to this podcast, eventually all our dogs are going to do a teeter and a dog walk and weave pulls. Like the skill set that we want our dogs to have at the very end of training or once we start trialing is all the same.
Right.
Right. But how we get there is very, very different. And,
right.
And like you said, having them side by side instead of just one of them really brings that out. Because
you are comparing 2 actual dogs in front of you, not one dog in front of you and one dog from your memory.
Right.
Or one dog that's a litter mate that you only see every once in a while, or you only see the highlight reel. Right? Or one dog from somebody else that you're comparing
the training,
to.
The environment is kind of very similar, right?
Right.
They're both in the same house. The
right.
the trainers are very similar. There's some overlap in the training we do with the dogs, certainly.
Exactly.
Where we each train both dogs. And I think this ties in very nicely to kind of number 2. Right. And number 2... the second lesson that they've taught us is really a reminder that there's no perfect puppy, right? We all get really excited about these breedings and litters, and you spend so much time doing your research and finding the right one. And for us, for the poodle, we were able to go and visit multiple times and kind of get your pick, the one that you want. And so it had been such a long time, I think, since I had in particular a golden retriever puppy, right? I'd never had a poodle puppy, but golden retriever puppy I had, but it had been, like a decade or something, right? So I think I find that it's easy for me to idealize previous puppies and dogs for that matter, right? So how many of you have that heart dog, right? That dog, they probably since passed, and all your memories of them are really good. It's never the time, that they, all the times they were like barking at the door or, running off course or that kind of thing. Actually, I do have a lot of those memories of the Rottweiler, which are really
stuck
endearing.
In your head.
But
endearing now.
yeah, you really do idealize it. We do this in all aspects of our lives. I think one place where this happens a lot, at least for healthcare professionals, is like the training process. Like way back when you were a young baby doctor, you're like, we didn't have all these issues and paperwork and this, that, or the other, and it was a great time, and it really wasn't that great. There were a lot of things, and you kind of gloss all of that over.
I think even with two puppies in the same household, we still do this. We still look at the grass is always greener. It just is. We look at the other puppy. It always happens when you're frustrated, right? Something's
Sure.
not going well in the training. And you look over at that other puppy, and in our case, that other puppy is 2 feet away from you, right? And you have access to all the time. And you say, man, I wish I could work with that puppy because that puppy is so good at X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And then you go and you work with that puppy, and they are good at X, Y, and Z, but they are horrible at A, B, and C. Right? So I can't tell you how many times I've had the thought, and I think this with our older dogs. We have 2 older border collies, and I think, man, if I could just put you guys together, you'd be amazing. Right? And it's the same with the puppies. If you could just take the best out of each and put it together and discard, all of the deficits, you'd have a super puppy. But that's just not possible, and it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen with any puppy that you have. Every puppy that you have is going to be better at some things and worse at others. And it's our job as trainers to work through that. And so having these 2 puppies at the same time, again, it just reinforces what we already knew, which is the puppy that I'm working with is going to be better at some things than others, and that's okay, and we will work through it. And yes, it may take me 3 times as long to teach one skill, but there might be another skill where I teach it in a third of the time, right? So it's all going to come together. It's all going to be okay.
Yeah, and these are 5 lessons that we picked out because they were very striking to us, and they're a little bit puppy specific. Obviously, these puppies are teaching us about, a dozen lessons a day, but I wanted to really hone in on these. So number 3 is going to be that fear periods are real. So when's the last time you thought about a fear period in a dog?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we always think about when
it's
dogs
in all the books.
Right, and when dogs are acting a little funny and they happen to be puppies, people are always going to ask you, well, do you think it's a fear period? And again, these are things that we know and we always consider when we're working with dogs. But working with 2 that were so close in age, it was like a light switch. Something that I would have wondered if it was a fear period. After watching both of them go through it, ba-boom, ba-boom, back to back, I knew it was a fear period. And so it just made it really striking. And we saw both of our puppies go through this. And again, these are 2 puppies that have very, very, very different personalities from each other and very different natural responses to things in the environment and things like that. So, you see, the poodle is a little bit more aware of the environment and aware of strangers, and you see her go through a fear period.
She's a little more reserved.
Yeah, a little bit more reserved. You see her start to go through some stuff, and you think, well, is this her? Is this a fear period? I don't know. And then about 2 weeks later, this happy-go-lucky golden retriever, who's never met a stranger, right?
Not reserved.
Not reserved at all, suddenly is like, I'm not quite so sure about these, new people or these new places. And I think that was the moment when I was like, there's just no doubt in my mind that this is a fear period that they're going through. And then, that both of them started doing much better, a month later. So again, just really highlighted that, having both of them so close in age.
Yeah, and I think that's a nice lead into number 4, which is that puppies are not dogs. And what I mean by that is when I started with these puppies, I kind of, I recognize that they're puppies, right? And they can't do all the things that dogs do. But mostly in my head, I'm thinking, well, obviously they can't weave yet. They're not full size and their growth plates haven't closed. Obviously, We're not going to start jumping. Obviously, we're not going to teach them running contacts.
You weren't thinking about their brains.
But yeah. So you're thinking about physical maturity and when you're going to teach certain skills. But otherwise, I kind of approach them the same as I do as dogs. And I think that's a mistake on my part and something that I had to quickly not do or stop doing, because it's like, what they say in medicine, in pediatrics, right? That children are not small adults. So if you take care largely of adults, you come down to kids and you're like, oh, okay, well, it turns out, if I'm going to give 200 milligrams for an adult who weighs 70 kilos, this kid only weighs 30 kilos, then I'm just going to take half the dose. And you can't do that, right? There's something very different about the physiology of children, right, as opposed to adults. And so they have different needs, and the healthcare that you're going to provide for them that they need is different. And so I think puppies are the same way. Like even now they're 9 and 10 months old, but they are clearly not adults. I think the poodle, obviously, she's probably already fully grown and is much closer to adulthood, not just because of the 1 month, but because of the breed and the size of the breed. Right? She's much closer to maturity. And I think mentally she's a little bit closer to maturity. The golden is obviously nowhere near maturity. Okay, and we've been around large dogs for a long time, especially golden retrievers. And relative to most smaller breeds, and definitely to border collies, because we have border collies as well, they mature more slowly. And I'm not saying they're dumb or anything like that. I'm just saying that they are not the adults that they will eventually be at this point.
Even though
they're
they may
away.
Look more like an adult.
And that is the point, because I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast how the golden retriever was already like 19 and a half or something. Right? And so full size, she's going to be like somewhere between 20 and 21 inches, right? So she's almost there. Right? And someone commented to me the other day, oh, well, now she looks like an adult, like a big golden. And she does, but she's not. And you have to keep that in mind, especially when you're training, because suddenly it becomes too easy to start treating this dog like an adult who's been training and knows how to learn and has that confidence and relationship with you. And it's just kind of easy to forget all that.
Right.
And
I think for us, it might be even a little bit especially easy, because I would say that in our general training of adult dogs, we do a lot of the things that you would want to do for a puppy anyway, namely short sessions, high rate of reinforcement, keeping things positive. Like these are all things that we do with all dogs, but lots of people are much more careful about that with young dogs, right? They have those shorter sessions. They understand the shorter attention span. We're kind of that way with all dogs. And so I think for us, it maybe is even easier to fall into that trap of feeling like they're more mature than they are, because I think for us, it's a lot about expectation and where you think you're going to get in a session and the frustration that can cause when it doesn't match up with what's happening. And one of the things that we have noticed with these young dogs is that there are things where we just kind of put it to the side. Things weren't going well in the training, pushed it away, didn't work on it. One of the things that really stresses people out about puppies is that there's so much to teach them. But in a way, that could be a benefit, because if something isn't going well, there are so many other things you can move on to. And I think about, in particular, teaching the young puppies to circle a cone. And they were getting the shaping game. They were starting to understand some circling, but we weren't really getting the full circle behavior. And I moved on, not because I was frustrated, but because there were so many other things to teach. To me, this was an exercise in shaping, helping them learn how to learn. It wasn't a skill that I needed right then. And then I came back to it 4 months later. I found the video, and the first video that I had, these puppies are tiny. I couldn't even remember that they were that tiny as they were shaping, circling a cone. And now they look like full-grown adults. And in one session, I just exploded where I was before. I spent lots of sessions when they were puppies getting, a 1/4 turn, and I spent one session going from 1/4 to 2 full turns. It just happened so fast.
Their brains are so much mature. It's like trying to teach a 3-year-old, the multiplication table. It's just not going to happen, or not happen very easily. But, when you take an older child, you can do it.
Yep. And so that's why I think it's a great idea with puppies to just really cycle through different behaviors that you're trying to teach, because especially in that beginning period, it's really more about learning how to learn, enjoying the process, enjoying being with you. Yeah. Right? It's not about the end behaviors at that point. And so you can really just take your time with some of these behaviors and just really enjoy the entire process, and make sure your dog is enjoying the entire process. Your puppy is enjoying the entire process.
I agree. And that brings us to number 5. And it's that these puppies try to talk with us. And I think especially with the older dogs, communication, it's like we're longtime old best friends. You guys have those friends, the ones you go out with? You don't need to say much. You have a good run, you have a bad run, and they can just look at you and nod their head, and everything that needs to be said has been said in that moment. Sometimes you don't even need words. But here we're with these new friends, these new puppies, and we don't know each other yet. And so I think we're trying to figure it out. I'm trying to understand them. They're trying to understand us, desperately so, right? And their world as well. And so things like, hey, there's a stranger at the door, and I'm a little worried about that. I need to go to the bathroom. I think that's a big one. Hey, I want to play. Or, hey, can I snuggle up with you here? Which I sometimes is different from the play. And so the older dogs kind of have their routines and the way they do things, and they know how they like it and how they want it. And I know how they like it, how they want it.
Or they know how to get what they want, right? Exactly. They already know the rules.
Exactly. And I know their rules, right? And so, we don't have as much of that. The communication there is pretty good. But here it's like starting all over again. So I found that super interesting. I had read that article that was floating around different news outlets, including CNN, of, I think she was like a speech therapist or speech pathologist, and she is a young lady with a master's degree in that field, and she had a rescue, I want to say cattle dog or cattle dog mix, and she works with very young children on speech, and so she created this board, an electronic board of like 20 buttons, and each button was a different thing. Like you hit one button and it was like outside, and one button is like play, and one button is like feed me, and that kind of thing. And I saw some of those videos on Instagram, and they were very, very interesting. So like if the dog had seen something outside and he had that look on his face, where if our dogs had that look on their face, they would probably be running to the door and then running back to us, and then going over there and maybe giving a bark or two, and then coming back to us and, hey, there's someone at the door, let's check it out. This dog was like looking at the door and then runs over to the thing and is like tapping the button
look
repeatedly.
Outside, look outside.
outside. So I thought that was super interesting. But it's this idea of communication, and that our dogs really desire to communicate with us, and we desire to communicate with them, right? How much easier would agility, or just even your life, would be if we can understand each other better between the two species? So I think that's pretty interesting. And you made the point when we were talking about this, preparing for this podcast, you said something.
Respect the bark.
Respect the bark.
This is a phrase that we have at our house, respect the bark, because especially as the dogs get a little bit older, we're trying to do life, do our jobs, work around the house, and it's not time to be out with the dogs right now. And one of them barks, and then we'll, go and take the dog out, and they go to the bathroom. And we come back and we say, you got to respect the bark. And that's our way of reminding each other that most of the time these dogs are not barking for no reason. And,
well, they have a particular bark, right? So I think the sneaky times has been when you take them out, they go, let's say they go 1 and 2, you bring them back in, and then 5 minutes later, they're giving you the same bark. And you're like, dude, I just took you out. You went 1 and 2.
Or I took you out and you didn't go, right? But you had that chance.
Right. But then you take them out and they do, in fact, go.
Right.
For whatever reason, either a second time or...
upset stomach or whatever, right?
It's very, And then a couple times that they've been like a little frantic.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, when you're like, that's...
And not just in their crate. I mean, like, just around. Like,
they might be
out in your X pen. I'm like, look, I know I'm eating this food and you want it. And they're like, no, dude, this is not about your food while you're watching the football game. I need to go into the bathroom right now because you gave me too many treats this morning and I don't feel so good in my stomach.
Right.
Right. So... I really liked that you had said that. And so, it's part of the communication game that we're playing with these puppies right now. So anyhow, these are the 5 lessons that our puppies are teaching us, or these are 5 of the many lessons that our puppies are teaching us. So again, it's number 1. Puppies are individuals. They're all going to respond very differently, even when the training is an environment is the same or very similar. So you need to adjust to the individual. Number 2, there's no perfect puppies. We all kind of idealize our older dogs, especially the ones that have gone on. And so there's a lot of comparison that can kind of go on in your head. Just remember that the puppy is the reality, and what you were thinking about before, you've probably forgotten most of the bad stuff or knowing stuff. And number 3, fear periods are real. Hopefully we are past them. I don't know if there's another one.
I think there might be another one.
Like at 14
there
months
might be,
or something.
Might be. We'll see.
Number 4, dogs are really trying to communicate with us. And so we want to respect that rather than shut them down. I know that in the past, like when we started with dogs, way back when I didn't know anything about dogs, I viewed barking as like a nuisance thing, like not as any kind of attempt to communicate. So now I'm like whining, barking, pawing. I'm all like a detective now. What is it that you want, dog? I have this chart and it's got a smiley face, a frowny face, and a fire hydrant on it. Okay, I'm gonna point to each one. Okay, now you tell me which one are you feeling inside? So I'm always trying to figure out my dog's emotional state and what they want. And number 5, puppies are not dogs. They are in fact puppies. That they are different physiologically. They are
even older puppies.
Exactly, they are going to mature. Okay, and so. Don't get frustrated, and definitely be willing to circle back on a training skill that you might be struggling with. And before we let you guys go, I think we're probably not going to have a podcast next week, which is Thanksgiving week. Depends, obviously,
here
when most of you guys are hearing this. This weekend is the European Open team tryouts for the United States. Partner Jennifer Crank is going to be there. Running her dog, so I'm definitely going to try and catch their runs. And with Thanksgiving coming up, I just wanted to do the thing where we each say something that we're thankful for. But it can't be anything. It's got to be dog related, because this is a dog. In fact, it should be dog agility related to this podcast, right? Or at least dog related.
All right.
So
you get to go first.
I get to go first?
Yes.
Okay.
You sprung it on me.
Okay.
I have to think.
I am most thankful to have a partner in this puppy venture, because I got to tell you, the bulk of taking the puppies out when they communicate to us that they need to go out to use the bathroom is done by Sarah, whether it's cold or wet or rainy. And so I like that. I'm very grateful for it.
Aww,
thank you, Sarah.
That's so sweet. Oh, now I'm blushing on air. Okay, I am very grateful. I am honestly very grateful for all of our podcast listeners, all of our students online. They teach us a lot. Being able to work with a lot of people and a lot of dogs makes us better trainers for our own dogs. And honestly, there is so much personal gratification that I get when people email and say that something that they heard on a podcast changed how they viewed an aspect of dog training or even an aspect of life. I feel like life is hard, dog training is hard, and I'm grateful to be able to help people in an area that I personally really enjoy.
Awesome. All right, and that's it for this week's podcast. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
We'd like to thank our sponsors, hititboard.com, 1TDC.com, and NTI Global. It's NTI's Agility's biggest sale of the year. All items, all colors, variations are made to order and on sale. These are the savings you've been waiting for. Visit shop.ntiglobal.com for the widest selection of dog agility tunnels for both competition and backyard training. Known for free shipping, more options, high-quality products, and low prices, NTI Global has got you covered. They also offer tamer and anchor weight bags along with a full line of accessories and agility storage solutions. Need your agility gear in a hurry? Don't forget to check the in-stock selection. Visit shop.ntiglobal.com today. Happy training!